as they say in journalism, you do not bury the lead, and so we promise to not do so. We've waited, especially at the latter half of this season, based on what's going on in the NFL, to hear what exactly is going to happen to Adrian Peterson. Commissioner Goodell has come with this decision that AP will miss the rest of the season without pay. I mean, it's kind of AP versus NFL right now. Your thoughts on the decision?
For Adrian Peterson, first things first, what we want to do is that we want to make sure that we stick to the facts. And the facts of the NFL, and make sure that we try not to bring too much of our personal opinion in there. So we want to stick to the timeline, and the timeline indicates, September 4th he was indicted. Mm-hmm. Then September 4th September 4th he wasn't indicted. September 12th he was indicted. Moving forward, September 15th, the Radisson suspended the sponsorship for the Vikings. September 16th, the next day, other sponsors voiced concerns. September 17th, he was put on an exemption list. November 4th, he finally reached a plea agreement deal with the state of Texas for a misdemeanor reckless assault charge. Then this past week, including earlier today, he was just banned from the NFL without pay, like you said. So when you're looking at the timeline and when you're looking at everything, what does that really say? What is the NFL really trying to do move forward? And to be honest with you, Ty, I think they're shooting from the hip. I think they do not have a concrete plan on what they want to do as they move forward. They have plenty of mishaps and missteps that they have done along the way with this case and with other cases too that's pending. Greg Hardy and especially Ray Rice, the Ray Rice situation. But here's a quote from a piece from Roger Goodell earlier today.
You love quotes, Marv.
And what he said in a letter to Adrian Peterson, as I read verbatim, "You have shown no meaningful remorse for your conduct. When indicted, you acknowledged that you did, but said that you would not eliminate whooping my kids and defended your conduct in numerous published text messages to the child's mother. You also said that you felt very confident in my actions because I know my intent." So, Ty, when you see this quote, when you hear about the intent, and when you hear about his decision to continue whooping his kids, do you feel that the NFL got that decision right? And what do you think the NFL decision is moving forward?
I mean, in terms of what Goodell is kind of using to kind of back up his decision, I mean, you would kind of have to say they got it right. I mean, when something like this happens, and especially in terms of the climate, that a lot of athletes, there's a lot of scrutiny and the spotlight is on these players. You got to show remorse, Marv. And I think he did not show enough remorse, for the commissioner, obviously, based on what he said. So perhaps if he had shifted what he had said, and kind of came from more, an emotional, standpoint, Goodell probably would have gone a lot lighter on him. I mean, for me personally, we can't take the right, to kind of discipline your kids from the parents. I mean, we know today's kind of culture is don't touch them. We'll kind of get your kids out of the way. But at the same time, what the climate's like, especially for, young African-American males growing up, where is it on me to discipline my kids, or do I wait for, the police system or the justice system to discipline my kids? Because, history shows that hasn't always worked in their favor.
But the thing about that, Ty, and I understand that what you're saying, the thing about that is Roger Goodell and the NFL, I feel that they're using the public scrutiny and they're using the sponsorship to play jury. And what I mean by that is, it's kind of ironic that after the Radisson pulled their sponsorship, mm-hmm. after other sponsors came out, then all of a sudden he was put on the exemption list. Mm-hmm. And while he was put on the exemption list, the notice was that when he came back, he would have an opportunity to play. And when he came back, when he solved his court case early, it seemed like he solved his court case. Roger Goodell was going to put him back on the Vikings. Then when Roger Goodell saw what was going to happen, what was going on, he suspended him for the rest of the season. But you have to remember that the facts was that he was indicted on a misdemeanor charge, not mm-hmm. a felony charge. Mm-hmm. So what is the exact charge for a misdemeanor? Now, as here, I have a list of athletes. So what is the equivalent of a misdemeanor? Is it Josh Brent? Remember that he killed his former teammate this mm-hmm. past year. Is it Dante Stallworth? Someone else that was in another vehicle homicide, drunk mm-hmm. driving situation. Is it Richie Incognito, who was also suspended for a long period of time? Is it Michael Vick? All these people, is that the same length of punishment that Adrian Peterson needs to be going through right now doing this purpose?
And I mean, it's really easy, especially when you hear it, to say, oh, I got spankings growing up, me personally. It's not that big of a deal. But then, what is the one thing that everyone says about Adrian Peterson when they say him? That he has the strongest handshake that they've ever felt. And so, in combination with that handshake and the pictures, especially the photos of Adrian's kids, it makes you kind of think, while his intent is to discipline, you're not the average parent. Someone taking a switch to their kids is not the same as Adrian Peterson taking a switch to his kids. So I think when you get all the emotionals, the emotions into it, factor in with the images, it's enough to say, you know what, you're too strong and you kind of went too far. Although, compared to all these other actions, not to mention, the Josh Gordon situation, there's, Ray Rice, everyone's got a different sentence. And you touched on the fact that the NFL may not know what they're doing. And based on what, we've kind of seen this season, perhaps they are just kind of making it up as they go.
It's still hard for me. What you're sending and what the message that you're saying is that Roger Goodell is in control of how you're going to discipline your kid moving forward. If I have a child, and I talk to people that do have kids, they said this: if I have to take this to your backside to discipline you, that means I will take this as a parent to discipline you. As a parent, if I need to discipline you, that's what I would do. Now, so what happens when a kid gets a spanking and the mother doesn't agree with it and the police is called? Now, will that particular athlete be suspended or put on the exemption list moving forward? What you're doing is you're opening a Pandora's box of how people should raise their kids. But in reality, most parents typically say, if you're on the outside looking in, do not tell me how to raise my children. Do not tell me how to raise my kids. You're not in the household every day. Mm-hmm. And when a lot of people say that he's a child abuser, I think you're slandering his name. That is something that you can never recover from. That's on the same lines as being a racist, a child molester, a bigot. Some of the things, some of the words or adjectives that are used to describe a person, to describe a man's character, it's also the same things that can be very detrimental to his future moving forward.
Absolutely. And you mentioned child abuser. With the grain of salt, because it's those certain individuals in the nation who make it difficult to discipline your kids. Because not everyone's kind of going out of control the way Adrian Peterson is perceived to have in all the images. But we know that there are some kids out there who are falling victim to overtly aggressive parenting. I mean, enough of what we got to think. Let's kick it over to Steve and go over to Shed's block and, tell us your thoughts on the whole AP versus the NFL situation.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Shed's block once again. Strive higher every day. And we're talking about Adrian Peterson. Now, he's been suspended for the rest of the season after what had happened with the incident with his child. He took the plea bargain and did the misdemeanor charge. So basically, it's not a felony. But at the same time, he did kind of punish his child very harshly. Looking at the pictures, and you kind of see, it was a pretty bad spanking. For some people, especially like people that I grew around, that type of situation is not something that we look at and kind of look down upon. I mean, not to say that's a good thing, but at the same time, we're kind of used to that. So you gotta think about that as far as the mind state of some of these people that say, well, he shouldn't have got punished for whooping his child, because they're whooping their child all the time for doing stupid stuff, and it's just become part of a mindset or a culture. For me personally, I don't think it should be that huge of a deal. Obviously, he did, harm his child. He's a very strong man, as we were talking about, one of the strongest hands in the NFL, and the whips on the kid was pretty bad, but he was really just trying to put some discipline in his child. He wasn't really trying to harm his child, and I don't think it was, harmful intent. Now, thinking about that and thinking about the situation that the NFL has been put in so far, you got Ray Rice, you got Adrian Peterson, you got all these other issues that have come up, and it's really kind of taken hold on Roger Goodell. So you think about that situation and what he's been put up on, especially when you have big brands like Budweiser threatening to pull himself out of the NFL and giving him all that money. When the money situation comes up about what was going on with this, obviously, Roger Goodell is going to make it a very harsh punishment, especially because everybody's after his head right now. So I kind of understand where they're going with that, but at the same time, I don't think he should have been suspended for the whole year as a player. I'm thinking he's definitely going, fight for that appeal to try to get back into the league. And as a player, I would probably do the same thing because I don't think that's a justifiable punishment, especially if you got players in the league that's killed players and stuff like that. It's crazy stuff that go on that is way worse than what Adrian Peterson has done. Not to say that this is some situation that should be warranted, but at the same time, I'm just thinking, it shouldn't be something that he should be punished for the remainder of the year. But the good thing about it is his NFL career is not over. So next year he's going to have another opportunity. Who's to say it might be the Vikings? I'm hearing rumors about the Cowboys. We don't know. We'll see what happens with Adrian Peterson, but I still think he has a lot of football left in him.